Ladysmith Harbour, took her legislation all the way to Ottawa, served this region for 12 years, and changed our country in many ways. Jordan's Principle and a lot of work on Indigenous missing and murdered women was all Jean's legacy. And I was so proud to be able to carry that work on as Ladysmith and Nanaimo's Member of Parliament. Our history of standing up together really infused that work that I did. I went to Ottawa really to stop the Kinder Morgan pipeline. I thought all we had to do was defeat the Conservatives in this riding, and that's what would have killed the Kinder Morgan pipeline. Never having thought for a minute that our Liberal government would actually buy the pipeline. That was... So here we are still fighting for the coast, another election with another strong community behind us. I'm now the Parliamentary Secretary for Environment in the BC NDP government, and honored to be, but we cannot do this work alone. British Columbia needs a strong partner in the federal government dedicated wholly to coastal protection and to standing up with coastal people and for coastal people. And that's why I think we have the extraordinary gift in our riding, having a candidate like Bob Chamberlain. There is no one that I have seen on the front line of more of these fights in coastal communities, standing up against the Kinder Morgan pipeline, standing in the strongest way in the courts and with the people on the front line. And in particular, Bob's work after 3 decades of intractable fighting over protecting wild salmon and trying to get fish farms out of wild salmon migration routes. It's this man, Bob Chamberlain, that got the breakthrough after 3 decades to work using the principles of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People with the BC NDP government to get fish farms out of the wild salmon migration routes. It's an extraordinary breakthrough and the epitome of this man's work as a coastal defender. And so on Climate Action Day and on the beautiful shorelines of Ladysmith Harbour with my great friend Jagmeet Singh and so many of our community members here, thinking of the next generation, so grateful to the young children that have come out to stand with us today, I introduce to you my friend, coastal defender, and Nanaimo Ladysmith's future Member of Parliament, Bob Chamberlain.
Yay. All right, thank you. You're awesome. Good morning, everyone. I also want to acknowledge that we're on the unceded territory of the Staminas First Nation. I'm very honored to be here on Climate Action Day with my dear friend Sheila Malcolmson and my other dear friend Jagmeet Singh. It's only right that we gather here by the ocean, something that has been a mainstay of the work that I have accomplished in regards to safeguarding the environment. But it's things such as the ocean which are causing great concern to people for a variety of reasons. Of course, one is climate change, the undeniable fact that the oceans will rise when the glaciers are melting and the ice caps are disappearing. And in the face of this reality, this global reality, we have a prime minister that thought it was a good idea to buy a 60-year-old pipeline for $4 billion?
4.5.
$4.5 billion. And if he's going to build another one, you know it's going to be 4 times that amount by the time it's done. It's not a good investment for Canada. Imagine if we took that amount of resourcing and money and put it into green, alternative, renewable energy. We would be well down the path on the transition that is necessary. And that necessity is about ensuring the global temperature is a place or does not raise too far so our children can enjoy a measure of the life that we have. So the environment is there to provide for them as it has provided for us. And Sheila has mentioned the fish farm struggle in the wild salmon. I need to acknowledge the team that I had with me. I was part of a very dynamic team, including Premier Horgan's team, which we are the first table to implement the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. It was a shared decision-making model. It was free, prior, and informed consent, and we have proven to Canadians that it can happen. The world does not end, and we have agreements which safeguard the environment, wild salmon, reconciliation. It's all possible. And I want everyone to know, to advance this in a meaningful way on the national stage, it's all possible because of people such as my dear friend Jagmeet, who I have the greatest honor to introduce now. Jagmeet Singh.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much, brother. Friends, I am so honored to have the chance to be able to stand with Sheila Malcolmson, Nanaimo MLA, and with my incredible candidate, Bob Chamberlain, candidate for Nanaimo Ladysmith. Today we want to talk about defending the coastline. And we've got a beautiful coastline here in BC. And this is something that's particularly important given today is the week of climate strikes globally. So people around the world are taking to the streets, particularly young people, and they're demanding that leaders listen to them. They're calling out the betrayal. They're saying, how dare you betray our futures? And they're angry and they're frustrated, and they're right to be, because in the face of this global crisis, this climate crisis, world leaders have ignored young people, have ignored the evidence. Here in Canada, Mr. Trudeau, in the face of a global crisis, in the face of climate crisis, bought a pipeline for $4.5 billion. Not only did he buy one, back in 2015, Mr. Trudeau promised that he would not build the Trans Mountain Pipeline. He promised that he wouldn't build it. He became government. Not only is he committing to buying it or to building it, he's bought one. But the question is this: how can people trust Mr. Trudeau now? If he campaigned in 2015 saying that he wouldn't build Trans Mountain, and then once he became prime minister, after listening to the energy lobbyists who lobbied him and his government 1,500 times, he bought a pipeline and then on one day declared a climate emergency, on the second day approved building a pipeline. I mean, that's what we have with Mr. Trudeau. And we look at this beautiful coastline and we think about the young people. We think about the marine diversity. We think about how beautiful this is and how we need to protect it. And that's why today we're committing to boldly protecting this coastline with a coastal protection fund. This fund's going to protect salmon, help us reinforce the Coast Guard, make sure we continue the work that Sheila mentioned that she started or she built on from Gene Crowder, the work of making sure abandoned vessels are cleaned up because they pose a risk to polluting the coastline. We're going to boldly invest to protect our coastline, and we're going to make it very clear today that our pledge, our commitment as New Democrats is we will always fight the Trans Mountain. We will continue to fight against a 700% increase in tanker traffic and the diluted bitumen oil that could spill and threaten the entire coastline. One spill would devastate the entire environment. So instead of Mr. Trudeau, he likes to say pretty words before an election and then buys a pipeline, or Mr. Scheer, who doesn't even believe that there is a crisis, New Democrats are committed to not only committing to fighting, but also putting massive investments to fighting the climate crisis and protecting our coastline. Donc, je suis tellement fier aujourd'hui
I'm very, very proud today to announce that a new democratic government will protect the environment and protect our coast with an investment in a coastal protection fund. Unlike Mr. Trudeau, who bought a pipeline after saying he would never move forward with that type of project in 2015, and then he met with 1,500 energy lobbyists, bought the pipeline, and he said yes to expanding that pipeline. So we say no. We will always protect our coast. We will always protect the environment. This week, with the global climate strike, we're saying to the youth,
thank you very much, and
we're there with you. We're fighting for you.
You might have.
Hi, it's Annie Bergeron-Oliver with CTV National News. The Green Party has said they will phase out bitumen production between 2030 and 2035. I'm wondering if your party would do the same thing.
Yeah, our plan is that the future for Canada is a future where we're not using carbon for fuel. And so that's why we would immediately end fossil fuel subsidies right away, take those billions of dollars and invest that into clean and renewable energy. We would massively invest in transportation, public transportation, to electrify and to reduce our emissions, and we would retrofit all homes. We need to get off of carbon as a fuel, and we are absolutely committed to doing that.
So is that a yes, you would phase out bitumen, and how and when?
Our plan is exactly that we need to transition in a bold way. There's no question about it. The future of our planet depends on us moving to clean and renewable sources. And that means in all areas of energy, we need to stop burning carbon. There's no question about it. We need to stop burning fossil fuel. The emissions are massive, the impact in the environment is massive, and our future generations, the kids who are striking today, are demanding that we don't betray their future, that we commit today. So absolutely, we need to move away from all carbon as a source of fuel. That is our commitment.
Jérôme Labbé, Radio-Canada, le chef libéral et Premier ministre sortant, Justin Trudeau,
Liberal
s'est fait prendre
leader
en photo ce
Justin
matin avec
Trudeau
Greta
was
Thunberg.
photographed this morning
Est-ce
with
que vous
Greta
considérez qu'il
Thunberg.
se fait du
Do
capital
you
politique?
think that he's just trying to make political gains with this sort of thing?
En fait, c'était
Well,
la
in fact,
décision de
that
Greta
was
de le
the
faire.
decision
Mais ce
that
que
Greta
je veux
made to
dire
meet with him.
la jeunesse,
And what I can say
ce que je
to
veux
young
dire,
people,
aux
what I want to
Canadiens et
say
Canadiennes,
to all
c'est
Canadians
Monsieur Trudeau
is that
a
Mr.
promis en
Trudeau
2015
promised
de
in
ne pas acheter,
2015
de ne
not
pas
to buy
construire un
and not to
Il
build
a
a
promis ça.
pipeline. He promised that.
Ça, c'est un promis de 2015.
That is what he
Et
promised in
l'évidence, la preuve
2015.
est claire. Maintenant, il a
And now
acheté
we
le
have
pipeline
clear evidence.
et il a dit
And
oui
he did in
à
fact buy a
une
pipeline.
augmentation,
He said
une
yes
création d'une deuxième,
to the
autre
expansion
Donc,
with a
comment
new
on peut
pipeline.
croire
So
Monsieur Trudeau
how
à ce
can we
moment? Comment on
believe
peut
Mr. Trudeau?
avoir confiance en Monsieur Trudeau?
How can we trust
Il
Mr.
a
Trudeau
promis une chose,
when
il
he
fait
promised one
exactement
thing and did
l'opposé.
exactly the
Il n'est
reverse?
pas un leader en matière de changement
He's
climatique.
certainly not a
Et-
leader on
et c'est
climate
clair.
change,
Et
and
donc,
it's
on a
clear.
continué de mentionner et proposer
We
nos
will
propos
continue
pour défendre
to
l'environnement.
propose our own ideas
Sure.
to clean up the
It's
environment.
obviously Greta's choice who she wants to meet with, but it's really clear that Mr. Trudeau promised really clearly in 2015 that he would not build the Trans Mountain, that he would oppose it. And then once he got into office, not only did he break that promise, he bought the pipeline and then approved its expansion the day after he declared a climate emergency. That is something that should have everyone pause, and that's why Canadians are saying we can't trust and we don't believe Mr. Trudeau. We don't believe him with any promises that he makes now when he broke those promises so horribly right after getting elected and getting into power. It's clear that he works for the powerful, the people at the very top. He met with the energy lobbyists 1,500 times, and the results are clear. He continues to subsidize the fossil fuel sector. He exempted the biggest polluters from the price on pollution, and he bought a pipeline for $4.5 billion.
Hier à Radio-Canada,
Yesterday, the Green Party leader Elizabeth May said to Radio-Canada that everyone has to be radical on the environment. Are you comfortable with that terminology? Do you think that Canadians have to be radical on the environment? Well, I would say bold, and I think we need to have courage. And what I'm saying is that we need to have the courage to tackle the big polluters and the big corporations that continue to pollute the environment. We have to be bold in terms of our commitments and have the courage to say, yes, we can and we will change the direction of this country. We need to cancel all the oil subsidies and ensure that the biggest polluters pay their fair share. And we have to ensure that we can protect our coasts with from what will happen with the TMX.
Yes or no, do you support the liquefied natural gas project in northern BC?
Well, with that project, my position has been very clear. I believe the future has to be a future where we're no longer using any carbon, any fossil fuel for energy. And I want to end fossil fuel subsidies and invest in clean and renewable energy.
Yes or no?
My position is the future of our planet has to be one where we do not provide any fossil fuel subsidies and we invest in clean and renewable energy.
You've said the future of energy, like what you just said. Why not come out strongly against this? And why not come out strongly against this?
Very clear. The future, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end immediately fossil fuel subsidies. I'm going to take those billions of dollars and invest it in clean and renewable energy. I'm going to make sure our future is one where we're investing all of our public dollars into renewable energy, and we're building a future where young people can say, you know what, these leaders are fighting for us. I want to look at young people in their eyes and say, you know what, I'm not going to let you down. I'm going to fight with every ounce of my power and skill to be able to defend this environment so you have a bright future.
Cole Schisler, Black Press Media. You say you're going to invest in protecting the coast. Approximately how much dollars are you going to invest in protecting the coast?
Sure. So today's announcement is a $40 million announcement to support the coastline, to support protecting salmon, to support the removal of derelict vessels, to invest in protecting this beautiful coastline. It's also a contrast. Where we want to defend the coastline, Mr. Trudeau wants to increase the tanker traffic by 700%, risking a diluted oil bitumen spill, which could result in devastating impacts to this coastline. So our position is very clear. We are opposed to Trans Mountain, and that's a part of our defending the coastline commitment.
Local residents here are very concerned about coal and grain freighters that have been parking up and down the coastline. Yes. What is your position on those freighters?
Yeah, they should not be parking here. It's absolutely irresponsible, the fact that they're using a loophole and they're creating a great threat to this community and to the coastline here, and something that needs to be solved. And right now that loophole that exists is being exploited unfairly and wrongly.
Hi, back to me again.
Hi.
Obviously, fighting climate change is going to take the nation, and a lot of the plans involve cooperations from provinces and municipalities, and some of it's not federal jurisdiction. How do you get the provinces on side, and how well would your plan work if you can't get all of the provinces and territories on board?
So it's a fair question in the sense that it's going to take a lot of work. It's hard to work with. It's going to be hard to work within our federal system, but it's a beautiful system, and it requires that hard work. And we know if we put the right incentives on the table, the right investments on the table, we can encourage the right outcomes. We know that it has to be a collaborative approach, and we're committed to that. But there's some investments that we can make right away. There's some things that we can do right away. Ending the fossil fuel subsidies is something that the federal government can do without any negotiation with provinces. That's a commitment that we can make right now, and I'm making that commitment. We can also make sure we invest in clean and renewable energy. That's something we can do right away. With respect to our investments in public transit, for example, cities are asking for these investments. Municipalities are saying we need help, and we want to be a better partner between the federal government and the municipal government, who are demanding for the people that live in their cities and the municipalities, they need more investments. And we're committing to investing in clean and electric transportation, electrifying public transit, and massively investing in it.
Do you think it's realistic that your party can get elected without mass support in the prairie provinces?
I couldn't hear you. Do you want to get that
Sure.
the mic?
Yeah. Do you think it's realistic your party can get elected without mass support in the prairie provinces?
We believe in having support across the country. We need support everywhere. And the prairies are where New Democrats began with our powerful movement to fight for Medicare. It was in Saskatchewan where the first leader of this party, Tommy Douglas, began the journey to bring universal Medicare to Canada. I want to build on that vision that was brought to life by the prairies. I want to take it to the next step and to make sure we cover universal pharmacare as well, and then go beyond that to dental care, vision and hearing care, and head-to-toe healthcare that includes mental health and rehab services. Thank you so much, everybody. Please appreciate you being here. Thank you. Merci. Thanks again to Sheila and to Bob.
Yeah, you guys are awesome.
Sont bien réels. Earlier today, I had the chance to sit down with a remarkable young